Hello again, Gills fans. Welcome back to the latest episode of Gills in the Blood TV. It's match preview showtime as we look ahead to the weekend, and I'm pleased to say that for the second time this season, I'm joined by a Rochdale fan and her Game 2 advocate, Charlotte. Charlotte, appreciate you coming on. I know you've literally just got in from work after a long day, so I do appreciate you coming on to have a chat with us regarding Saturday's game, which is still massive and is still a relegation six-pointer because both teams did play in the week. Unfortunately, it was another defeat for Dale, but there were positives, I believe, in the defeat to a very good Leyton Orient side. Let's not forget that. And there was a certain Danny Lloyd scored, who we know all about. So great to see him back fit and firing and scoring goals. Gills did win in the week, beat Grimsby by 2-1. A late Ollie Hawkins header took us out of the relegation zone for the first time since November. But unfortunately, Rochdale are still firmly entrenched in that at the bottom of the division. Want to talk about her game too a little bit first, though, Charlotte. Obviously, we had a chat back in August now, second game of the season. Seems like an absolute lifetime away because we have both endured pretty rubbish seasons. I mean, I know I've returned now, so I don't want to gloat too much, and it's weird to be the one that's the positive person, so to speak. Her game too, though, seems to be taking off brilliantly. I've seen, obviously, you're the club ambassador. You've got plenty of other advocates as well, which I do now for the Gills. I thought it was something that I needed to do with my daughters coming along more regularly. And I think both clubs have got goalkeepers as player advocates as well. I think we just got the goalkeeper department, it seems, have got involved, which is great to see. But how's it going from a Rochdale point of view?
First of all, I just want to give a massive shout out to obviously Paige, your ambassador. She's absolutely brilliant, and just all your team. I look at the work that you're doing as well, and honestly, it's amazing. I always follow the social media, obviously getting the players on board. So I just want to say well done to that. You're all doing a really good job.
No, that's Paige. That's not on me. I've got very minimal input from myself. So I wear a badge. I bring my girls to games, and I let Paige put photos up on the Instagram page. It's all Paige. She does a lot of that, and Mandy as well, a lot more than me.
Yeah, she's absolutely fantastic, and all of you are just your influence and your input. You're doing a really good job. But from Rochdale, Richard O'Donnell is our player advocate, goalkeeper as well. He's been in the business for quite a long time now. Richard O'Donnell is very experienced wherever he's been. He's loved to engage with all fans. He loves to get involved. He's a really likable and nice guy. He's got a daughter too, and he always talks about like how female role models have had an influence on his wife. That was his mom, his sister, his wife, his daughter now. So it's fantastic having him on board. But it's going really well, and not just for Rochdale, just in general as a whole campaign. Obviously now we're into cricket, we're into rugby as well. We're just growing bigger and bigger, and it's so fantastic to see because all these girls and all these people involved, it's like it's not their full-time jobs. We're all not getting paid from it. It's all like it's all voluntary and stuff, and it's just alongside us having families, alongside us like having stuff going on at home, obviously full-time jobs, part-time jobs. So honestly, hats off to everyone involved, and it's not just the Her Game 2 teams. Anyone who shares like a post on Twitter, anyone who like talks to their daughters, if they bring the sisters, mums to football, just everyone involved, you're just all amazing. So it's brilliant, and everyone's a credit to the campaign.
Yeah, I echo that, and I say exactly the same about my channel in general, because without like people like you coming on and other fans of opposition teams and Gills fans and people commenting on Twitter and YouTube and everywhere else, the channel just sits there dormant effectively. It becomes nothing. So it's great to see. We're lucky in the sense that we've got the whole goalkeeping department now. I think I said we've got Glenn Morris, Jake Turner. Jake Turner's a really good one as well because his sister plays for Manchester United.
Yeah, that's brilliant.
In the Women's Super League. So that was a really good one to get. And Darren Ibrahim, who's our goalkeeping coach, is a top bloke as well. He's got involved as well. And like you say, they're all involved. They've all got other halves, partners, wives, girlfriends, mums, daughters, sisters. So it's something, again, that everyone can link to and sort of relate to. And I think it is good that it seems to be growing. And like you say, you're taking over other sports as well now, it looks like as well. So it'd be absolutely everywhere, and that's great. We want to talk about, well, you might not want to talk about the football, but we do have to talk about the football.
Yeah, unfortunately.
I'm going to do recent form. So, Rochdale fans, you might want to just put it on mute for a couple of seconds, unfortunately. And I've said that to Gillingham fans all season long up until about Christmas. So, I do feel your pain, I promise. Last 6 in the league is not pretty reading for Dale. It's 1 draw and 5 defeats in the last half a dozen. So, it's a single point from 18 available. Gills, top of the league in terms of the last 6, which is incredible to say after the first half of the campaign that we had, where we scored 6 goals in 23 games or whatever it was. Gills have taken 13 points. 13, that is, Gills fans. Do not adjust your sets from 18 available. That's 4 wins, 1 draw and 1 defeat in the last half a dozen. Home and away, to cheer you up a little bit, Charlotte, makes it a little bit more even. Again, it's not pretty reading for Rochdale. It's 2 draws and 4 defeats, so it's 2 points. But Gills, aside from the recent win at Colchester and draw at Swindon, have lost the rest. So it's 4 points from 18. So it levels the playing field a little bit. I've written down, you've lost to Harrogate, Hartlepool and Colchester in your last 6 at home, which has got to be a massive concern considering they're teams that are in and around you in the table.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's where us Dale fans are more frustrated about, because the teams that we should be picking some points up against, we're not. But then we'll go and pull off like a win at Bradford away, and obviously the draw against Northampton on Saturday. But yeah, it's not good at all. The only positives I can take from it is recently, and I know we're not picking up the results, is we are playing a lot better with the signings he has brought in January. Mm-hmm. That's a plus, but it's just so frustrating because you kind of get the hope and you kind of think, oh yeah, we're going somewhere. It's like on Saturday against Northampton, and then in the 89th minute, and I just feel like there's always a sucker punch. Like no matter where it is, it's just always a sucker punch.
Yeah, it must be. And again, I keep saying the same thing. I've been there. I do understand, and it is tough. And we had it throughout. I mean, us was obviously not scoring goals. It's well documented across social media that we just didn't score enough goals first half of the season. So we knew as soon as we conceded the opening goal, you're not winning a football match.
Yeah.
And it's not fun. I've never seen it in all my years watching football, and I've been going to Gills since the mid-90s regularly. To have seen a team that scored 6 goals in half a league season was it was astonishing. It was almost, if someone had said you'd write a film and the team in it would only score 6 goals in 23 games, I'd go, no, that's never going to take off because it's not believable at all. But it actually happened, and it was. Well, we can sit back and smile now as a Gillingham fan base because it has turned, and we're not out the woods yet, and I understand that entirely. But it is something that we can sort of go, oh, that was bad, but it has turned around quickly. Scoring goals doesn't seem to be too much of a problem for Rochdale, relatively speaking, for a team that's bottom of the league. And I'll get onto some individuals in a little while. But I think in all of them games, the last 6 that you've played at home, you've scored in pretty much all of them. I think there's only 1 where you've drawn a blank. Trouble is you've conceded 11, so that's nearly 2 a game. So when you're not scoring loads and you're shipping too many at the other end, it's obviously a recipe for disaster, and that's why you are where you are.
Yeah, definitely. I think a lot of it is because we've not. Our defence is obviously, we've always struggled defensively for years now, obviously, since, it sounds mental, but since Craig Dawson left, and this was like years ago, we've never really had like a solid defence. We've always leaked goals. And I don't know if it's because we're adapting, like our style of play now, we're adapting because now we kind of play with wing backs and we're kind of going with that. So I don't know if it's just formations adapting and just leaking goals as a whole, or we've just never really had a defence what's good enough. I don't know what it is. Obviously we had a goalkeeper change not that long ago. We got Jake Eastwood on loan from Sheffield United. So he's made a couple of mistakes, which has now cost him his place because I think his confidence is quite down as well. So Richard O'Donnell's back. But even Richard O'Donnell is a fantastic goalkeeper, but is leaking goals because the people in front of him, I just don't find our defence good enough. I can't really call for new guys. We've signed Toby Malarkey from Altrincham, and watching him play in the last couple of games he's played, he looks like a quality signing. And it does kind of remind me of how Craig Dawson played, you know, when he first started at Rochdale. He likes going forward as well, Toby Malarkey. As much as he's good defensively, he does like to go forward as well. So he's definitely one to watch. with Sam Rees-Bennett back, he made a mistake last night, unfortunately, against Leighton Orient.
Oh, of course,
But
yeah, another former. He was, yeah, because he
yeah,
was with us a couple of seasons ago. I forgot all about that. He signed this window, didn't he?
yeah, he did. Yeah, he did. He played for us under Keith Hill and then obviously left and he's come back. So I don't really want to like call him as well because to be fair, he's only played the last couple of games and he's not had a club. So obviously he's a bit stiff and stuff at the back. So
Mm-hmm.
so we've got him. Ebanks Landell, you've probably seen the challenge which he got sent off for at Hartlepool away. It was quite a high challenge, but he's our captain as well, and he's just very. I don't rate him at all, and since obviously he's been out, I don't really want him to come. It sounds awful because he's our captain as well, but I just don't really want him to come back.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, we play with wing back, so I don't know if that's a problem, like pushing forward. And then obviously our defence aren't really great at the back. But yeah, unfortunately we are leaking goals, but that has always been a problem for Rochdale, like the last few seasons. That's nothing new. So I
Mm-hmm.
don't know. I don't really know what the problem is. But the good thing is, to be fair, we've not been conceding as many the last few games with obviously our new defenders coming in. So hopefully, fingers crossed, it can get better and better.
Yeah, and it's got to, and it has too fast.
Yeah, yeah,
There's no point pretending otherwise because you're still in
yeah,
the situation that we were in at the start of
yeah.
January. But yeah, aside from Saturday, I really hope that you do pick up because,
Oh,
like I say,
thank you.
there's a link with a couple of ex-Gills players, and
Mm.
I remember having decent battles with Rochdale in League One a few seasons ago.
Yeah, yeah,
And Keith Hill's teams were very good. You knew what you was getting with Keith Hill's teams. They was always going to be well drilled and hard to play against and horrible to play against. But they was always good honest battles. I remember Aaron Wilbraham's and Calvin Andro chucking elbows at everyone a
I
few
know.
years ago down at the Priestfield, and you've probably lost a little bit of that, which might be hindering you at the moment. Obviously, we've spoken about you really struggling to pick up points
Yeah,
against teams
yeah.
in and around you at the moment. It's something that Gills have done really well in the last six. We've beaten Hartlepool 2-0 at home. We then went to Colchester, and I think that looks an even better result now because they're absolutely flying at the moment. Obviously, beat Crawley,
Yeah,
beat Grimsby in the week. That was a tricky one to gauge Grimsby because they are down there, but they've still got 4 games in hand because this brilliant cup run they've had. So they could still end up sort of top 10, top 12
yeah,
very easily
yeah.
with a couple of wins. But so for me, that was another impressive performance. And we didn't turn up first half, but neither did Grimsby. But we really stepped on it second half, and I thought
Yeah,
we
yeah.
were good value for the points, even though it was a late goal. It's something that you sort of forget when you're struggling down the bottom. You just realise how good late goals are and
Yeah.
how well received they are. Rochdale as a whole, though, not just on the pitch. I've seen tweets from yourself and other Rochdale fan pages and that type of thing. First question is the football side of things. Why has it gone so wrong for first Robbie Stockdale and now Jim Bentley? But then on a broader scale, can you sort of sum up? I know you probably need longer than a short episode like this, but what's going on behind the scenes, which is causing this real problem, and the fact that with 20 odd games to go, your EFL livelihoods really are at stake now.
Yeah, definitely. So the football side of it, I just think the team that Robbie Stockdale kind of got during the summer, I don't think it is good enough. Some of obviously the signings that he did make, a lot of them aren't really playing for us now since Jim Bentley's obviously had January and he's brought his own players in. So a
Sure.
lot of them I just feel like aren't good enough. Under Jim Bentley, I feel like a lot of it is to do with sometimes his decisions, like his substitutions. Is one for bringing on a lot of late substitutions instead of when we are tiring and the players are tiring. I feel like he does leave it too late. So then obviously it does leave us like we are struggling like for energy and stuff. So then we make mistakes more. I feel like players, it's just individual mistakes that cost us games where we've like obviously where there's been times we've lost by 1 goal. I think it's just individual mistakes like our defence or just it sounds mental, but I just feel like when you're at the bottom of the league, you just can't afford to make them individual mistakes. And it's not as if it's hard. It's like basics where we struggle on, and set pieces in particular. We are awful at defending set pieces.
Mm-hmm.
I think some of the players' attitudes, we have got quite a lot of loan signings, so I feel like some of their attitudes, instead of like running back, this was obviously before we brought these signings in January. They're like strolling back, they're not marking a man for a corner. It's just stuff like that where I just think when we're fighting at the bottom of the league, we need to try, we need to show that we're up for it. As much as obviously it is deflating, we need to show our passion, not just jog back and stroll back. And it's so disheartening as a Rochdale fan, because it's like our football league, like our time in the football league on the line, and some of these players just don't look interested. And I think that's why now, since January, obviously your Danny Lloyd, your Ian Henderson's, we've got Owen Dodgson on loan from Burnley. He's a 19-year-old defender. He's putting more effort in, and he's showing he wants this more than half of the players that have played this season. So I think a lot of it is certain players as well who kind of, I don't want to say they don't care, because I think that's a bit too much to say. And obviously I don't know these players personally, but I think some of them aren't really putting that effort in. So that's obviously frustrating. Behind the scenes, I just think, obviously we had that with the hostile takeover not that long ago, and obviously it's fan owned, our club. Our chairman Simon Gage has kind of said now where we can't substantially like compete with the clubs around us if we're just fan owned. We need an investor like as well to put money into the club, because we are a small club. We've always been a small club, and we've always been the kind of club that has to sell players on or have a cup run, you know, to kind of like get money to buy players. And we've not really had that in the last few seasons, since Luke Matheson. Obviously, he went to Wolves for £1 million, and since then we've never really had that. So I think it's just behind the scenes. I think it's more that we can't really compete at this level at the minute just being fan owned. We do need to go that extra mile, because obviously there's been takeovers, there's clubs obviously like your Stockports now, your Salfords, who have got a lot of money, you know, in the football league, and obviously us, we can't really compete with that. So yeah, I think it's just a bit of everything really. Just negativity around the ground at the minute, because fans are just so frustrated as well. I think that's there's a lot of toxic things about that. There's people who want Jim Bentley out now, which obviously, as much as it's frustrating, we can't afford to sack him, and we need to stick with him. We can't just keep sacking managers left, right, and centre, because that's not going to help as well.
No, yeah, you're right. I mean, you look at Southampton in the Premier League are now searching for their third manager of the season.
Yeah.
Any team that's looking at a third manager of the campaign is clearly doing something wrong somewhere along the line, aren't they?
Yeah, definitely. And realistically, I just think to myself, when they're going on about, oh, we need to sack Jim Bentley, I think who will want to come to Rochdale at this stage with I think it's is it 5 points adrift now after last night? I think we're 5 points adrift at the bottom. We've just had a January transfer window. We've got no money compared to these teams around us. And I just think, who would realistically, a toppish name, want to come to Rochdale at this moment in time? We couldn't even do it when obviously Stockdale had left. So who will want to come to it now? And then there's people saying, oh, we want Keith Hill back. And I just think maybe that's too much of a risk with Keith Hill, because as much as it was fantastic sometimes, and he brought us so much like great memories towards the end of obviously his career managing for us, it was toxic with the fans. It just kind of weren't the same Keith Hill as we knew obviously before that. So I think that's a risk as well. So yeah, it's a bit of everything, a bit of a mixture.
There's loads of similarities, Charlotte, compared to us. And I mean, you talk about being fan-owned, so then it becomes difficult for it to be subsidised and to be sustainable over a longer period of time, especially like you say, when you've got the likes of Salford and Bradford and that type of team. And
yeah, definitely.
Dare I say it, Gillingham to a slightly lesser degree now. So yeah, but our chairman before Brad Gallinson took over, Paul Scally, had come out and admitted, for all his faults, he came out and he said, I can't take us any further just being a one-man band.
Yeah.
Our frustration was that he was looking for investment for the best part of 2 decades, and then he took a backward step I think the week before we played you in the home game, actually.
Yeah.
And we got in Paul Fisher, who he's had on the board before. And he's come in and within 6 months managed to find investment and we've been taken over. So I think that's one similarity.
Yeah.
And like you say, the manager thing, we had this chat about Neil Harris for the first 4 or 5 months of the season because we weren't scoring goals, we were losing. I think the one thing that maybe saved Neil was the cup runs.
Yeah.
But like you say, who's going to want to come to a team that's bottom of the
Exactly.
league, that we're looking to essentially, we were looking at back-to-back relegations at the time, clearly had no money to spend.
Yeah.
Who's going to go, oh yeah, I really fancy that?
Exactly.
It's not the
They'd
most
be
appealing job,
stupid.
is it? No, exactly.
It'd be stupid.
Yeah, you do think sometimes these managers need to have go and have their head looked at a little
Yeah.
bit, but it's obviously love of the game and all that type of thing. But
True.
Neil did it for us because it became quite clear in recent months that he took the job when we were on the verge of coming out of League One and
Yeah.
knew that this takeover was in the pipeline at some point. Obviously, it took nearly a year, so he essentially wrote a relegation on his CV. So you have to admire him, I think, from that point of view, because no one wants to put a relegation on their CV, and he's managed the championship. So there are similarities, and I really do, like I say, and I'm not just saying it. I really do hope you get it sorted out, because number one, that National League looks absolutely horrendous to get back out of. Do you think geography plays a part for a team like Rochdale as well? Whereas, because obviously we're the only league club in Kent, so we've been quite lucky that if our owner came in and looked at that specific area, in terms of geography, we was the only option in the Football League. Whereas if you've got investors looking at where you are, there's so many other clubs across all the divisions, aren't there, in the EFL?
Yeah, 100%. I feel that for like a takeover, but just in particular as well, we don't really get great crowds at Rochdale. We've never had big crowds. But then I think to myself, we're surrounded by obviously like Bolton, obviously Bury at the time, and obviously they've gone and obviously built up. We've got Oldham, we've got Manchester United, Manchester City, Blackburn, Wigan, not Rochdale, we're Rochdale, sorry. Liverpool aren't far away from us. So I just think you've got so many big teams around us. Who's going to want to really come and watch Rochdale when you've got all them
Yeah, I
teams
guess you've got
around
to
us?
have that
Yeah.
sort of almost ingrained in you from a very young age, like a parent takes or a grandparent and that type of thing. Otherwise, it just comes too easy and accessible to watch Premier League teams on the TV.
Definitely. And I feel like back in the day, it used to be like Manchester United and Manchester City fans, if obviously they were away on a certain day, they'd come and watch Rochdale. But now I just feel like, especially this season, we're not doing too well. And you think of just the cost of living and like ticket prices and things like that in general. People can't afford to go and watch one team all the time, never mind having like 2 clubs where they can go and support. So yeah, I think it's massive, and obviously being surrounded by that many clubs, I think who would, out of them all, as much as I love Rochdale to pieces in my life, who would choose to invest their time and money in Rochdale than the other clubs? But then I think to myself as well, as much as it is like annoying, as much as it is like obviously we need investment and obviously it's frustrating, we do own our ground, we do own like the bars and stuff near it. So as much as obviously it is frustrating, at the same time we do own that as well. So for an investor to come in, at least that's kind of secure.
Yeah. From that point of view, you're in a strong position.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, when the position on the pitch is
Exactly.
as sort of fragile as it is at the moment, it then makes it trickier, doesn't it? And back on the pitch, let's talk about, because we said earlier in the show, we was talking about, you've got people that are a threat at the top end of the pitch. We know Mr. Rochdale is Ian Henderson, record goal scorer, that type of thing, who's got I had a quick look. He's got 8 in 35 this season. Not an awful return for a team that's struggling at the bottom of the league. Scored 7 of them have come in his last 20 or so as well. So he's been in decent form. But then you've got someone like Scott Quigley, who started the season really well, has got 5 in 25 in all competitions, which again, not a disaster, but only 1 in his last 13. So he's really struggling for form. But you've got Devonte Rodney as well, who's another good player at the level, 7 in 34. So you've got goals and threats in you. You then add in the likes of Danny Lloyd to the mix as well.
Yeah, definitely.
But but then I've wrote down, and we've already mentioned it, I think 47 conceded in 31 games. It's over a goal and a half a game, which is obviously causing you a problem. But let's talk about one person, because we're trying to keep it positive for you as well. I've just realised you've got another ex-Gills loanee as well in Tarvon Campbell, I think, who you bought out non-league from Woking. We had him on loan a few seasons ago, didn't really get a look in, to be honest. But Danny Lloyd is the one in terms of recent past, and I think I tweeted today and tagged him because I saw his goal at Brisbane Road from Tuesday evening and said, great to see him back amongst the goals after that horrific injury. And I also said, I'm convinced that if he'd stayed fit for the last 3 months of last season, we'd still be a League One club.
Yeah.
Number one, how's he getting on? Number two, comes across as a cracking bloke. I've spoken to him a few times on Instagram and social media, and met him outside the ground at last home game last season when he was just starting his rehab and starting to get himself back to full fitness. But Danny Lloyd must be one of the lights at the end of a fairly long tunnel at the moment, I can imagine.
Yeah, I mentioned it off air as well to you so far, and it's mad because it didn't come it came to us just before Christmas, and already is I would say he's been our player of the season and signing of the season, because it's just one of them footballers where you absolutely love him playing for you, but he's such a nuisance against you. So the opposition team, it can be such a nuisance, but it's just so passionate. He's always putting 100% effort in. He'll just run and run and run. And just off the pitch as well, he seems like a really good lad. And it seems like he's done an interview last night, and he basically said to the fans, we know your frustration. There's not one player who doesn't understand your frustration. And it kind of did such like a passionate speech to us fans and just said, please, like, give us time. We really are working on it. And for someone who's only just come in, he's shown more passion and more effort than half of these players who have been playing since the beginning of the season. And I just think to myself, like, I wish we could have like 11 Danny Lloyds on the pitch, because as much as I would take relegation, but having them try the best and just someone like Danny Lloyd giving their efforts 100%, I would take that than just what we've been watching like the beginning of the season, because some of them just don't seem bothered, and it's just so frustrating. But yeah, and I think he scored his goal at the perfect time, because I think honestly, if he can get one goal, I think he can build on that. So I'm hoping, no offense to you guys, but I am hoping he will score against us.
Oh, absolutely. I wouldn't expect anything else. I hope he has an absolute stinker. And if you are watching, Danny, I hope you really, really crap on Saturday. But no, again, I wish him all the best, because, like I say, he's a top bloke and he's a top player as well. And like you say, in terms of professionalism, and he just seems to get it as well. And we had a similar thing last season. You probably remember when we managed to concede 7 at home to Oxford, and 4 of them were penalties. And it was probably, I said at the time, it was probably my worst day supporting the football club. And that topped even like relegations in previous years. It was just such an inept performance. Danny Lloyd was the only one who came out on social media and said that wasn't good enough and we will put it right. And I understand other players take different approaches. They go quiet. They don't want to read it. They want to stay away from that negativity. But I just thought it needed someone to come out at that time after such a horrific performance and say something, just to give the fan base something to cling on to, essentially. The more immediate, obviously, is Saturday afternoon, 3 o'clock. Do you think Jim Bentley will stick to a similar 11 that put up a fairly decent showing against Leyton Orient, and also, like you say, picked up a decent point against Northampton last week, albeit frustratingly conceding right at the end?
I think it'll be very similar. I think it will be very similar. I think the only difference will be, obviously, with Ian Henderson, the age that he is, sometimes he does, after a few games that he has started, he will give him a rest. But I feel like we can't afford to rest him, because if anyone is going to score goals, I think it will be Ian Henderson, as obviously he's proven this season and in previous seasons. I think the goalkeeper will still be the same. I think it will be Richard O'Donnell again. I think Danny Lloyd will start. We tend to start with, we have 3 at the back, and then we have, obviously, we play with wing backs as well. I think it'll be very similar to what we started with. I think the only difference will be, if anything, Liam Kelly might come into midfield. But with Liam Kelly, he's very creative. On his day, he's absolutely brilliant, but he is quite a lightweight player. So it can get pushed off a ball quite easily because he's quite small and stuff. And I think we need someone more physical, especially obviously against Gillingham and obviously with the players you've signed. So yeah, I think it will be very similar.
It's fair enough. Yeah, we're the similar situation
Yeah.
with Sean Williams, who's 36, 37 now, and we took him out the firing line Tuesday. I think he pulled it. He had a slight muscle problem after Saturday's defeat at Mansfield, and he came on for the last 20 minutes. But we did actually miss him first half. We played two sort of attack-minded centre midfielders at home, and it didn't really work. We were very disjointed first half. In terms of the Gills, I can't see there being too many changes as well. Probably one or two. I mean, if it's not broke, don't fix it and all that. And it's not broke at the moment. I think Shay Alexander might come in. He was very good from the bench against Grimsby, and delivery for the winning goal was absolutely spot on. So I think he might come in, get a start. The only other one I think would be Sean Williams coming back into the starting 11 because I get that you're bottom and you're struggling, but we're still going to have to turn up and we're still going to have to do things properly. It's not a case of we just turn up and you roll over, despite what you've said. So I think Williams and Shay Alexander might be two that come into the starting 11. Other than that, I don't think there'll be a great deal of changes. The dreaded question before I let you go is, come 5 o'clock, final score will be. I've written mine down, so you can go first.
I'm gonna. I've been on several podcasts, and as much as we've been bottom of the league for a good few weeks now, I can never say we're gonna lose. I always have to have that little bit of positivity and optimism. So I'm gonna go for 2-1 to Dale. I'm gonna go 2-1 to Dale.
I've said 2-1, but I've said the other way. Obviously, we've both got to back our own teams, and we're playing well. But obviously, again, like we said at the top of the show, our away form compared to your home form recently is not a lot different. But we are a very different club to. And I would say as well, not to rub it in, but we beat you fairly comfortably back in August, and that was only 1-0, but we should have scored 2 or 3 more.
Definitely.
We were a much poorer side back at the start of the season. I know it was beginning of the campaign, but it's been a pleasure as always. So thank you for coming on. Yes, Gills fans, Rochdale fans, if you've got this far, then I really do appreciate you watching and listening. Again, I will put Charlotte's Twitter handle at the bottom of the video in the description on YouTube. So go and give her a follow. Go and give the Her Game Rochdale 2 page a follow as well, because it's a great movement and I'm pleased to be involved with it. And there's a lot of people doing a lot of good work. And like Charlotte says, it's all voluntary as well, not getting paid to do it. So it's all stuff in their free time. Comment down below. Let us know if you're a Gills fan or a Rochdale fan, what you think your team will be at Saturday, what you think the score will be. And also, don't forget that these videos are now in association with Art of Football. So if you're looking for bucket hats, hoodies, prints, T-shirts, sweatshirts, anything like that, go and check out their website. The link is in the description at the bottom of the video. Not travelling up north on Saturday for this one, so likely to be back with Reese for a Monday review, looking back on the game. But until then, enjoy the rest of your week and up the Gills.